Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending the annual meeting of the Condominium Authority of Ontario. My name is Emily Escobar, Director of Governance and Communications at the CAO. A couple of administrative items before we begin. We will be recording today's meeting for posting on our website. Should you have any challenges in viewing the slides or hearing the meeting, please let us know in the chat as we have technical support standing by to try and assist everyone. Also, you will be able to go back and watch the meeting in its entirety on our website at a later date. The CAO's bylaw specifies that the members of the corporation are the directors of the CAO board. As such, those who have registered will be able to observe the meeting, but only the members will be on camera and speaking. Participants will be able to submit questions in the sidebar chat feature of the platform. Your questions will be anonymous and will not be visible to the other participants. We will be collecting your frequently asked questions and posting answers subsequent to our session today on our website, along with a recording of this meeting. By way of introduction, on screen with us today are our 7 current members of the corporation, including Heather Zordell, Chair of the Board, Margaret Samuel, Vice Chair, Judy Sue, Treasurer and Secretary, Larry Bannock, Eric Levinson, Allison Scanlon, and Mary Proop. From the CAO staff, we have Robin Defo, CEO and Registrar, Rana Huram Manzoor, Chief Financial and Operations Officer, and Abida Medhani, Communications Coordinator and our facilitator today. With that, I will pass it over to Margaret Samuel. Thank you.
Good morning. Before we begin our meeting today, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement, as is customary at the CAO. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Dish with One Spoon territory, also known as Treaty 13, with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In a spirit of reconciliation and gratitude for those who first occupied these lands, we offer thanks for the histories, languages, and traditions that influence us to this day. We seek to both honor and forge new connections with all residents of Turtle Island and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. As Emily said, my name is Heather Zordell, and I have the privilege of being the chair of the board of directors for the Condominium Authority of Ontario. We call it CAO for short. And I will now call the meeting to order as chair of the annual meeting of members. The members, I'll just remind you, are actually the board members. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending our 4th annual meeting, of the Condominium Authority of Ontario. We are proudly webcasting to a live audience of over 1,300 people registered. We are pleased to see such a strong turnout this year and to have the opportunity to provide updates on the CAO's results and achievements in support of condominium communities in Ontario. We're moving to slide 3. I don't see the slides, so I'll just leave that with our staff. Today we will go through the standard annual meeting requirements as outlined in our general bylaw. And then we're going to provide some update as to what we've been doing and what we're planning to do. So for those who are participating from the community, please bear with us as we go through the requirements of an annual meeting. Invited to join us are individuals from the condominium community as well as the general public. The meeting agenda and supporting documents will be kept by the secretary, along with the minutes of this meeting, which will be approved at the next annual meeting. With a quorum of members present, all of them, frankly, I now declare that the meeting is regularly called and properly constituted for the transaction of business. Moving on to our agenda for the meeting. New slide. The formal business agenda was included in the materials distributed to members and to those who registered. We are now displaying the agenda on screen for everyone to see. First of all, we'll move to a motion. Unless there are questions from the members, may I get a motion to accept the formal agenda of the 2021 annual meeting of members of the Condominium Authority of Ontario?
I so move.
Great. And seconder?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Judy. Any discussion? Pause for discussion. None. I then ask all members in favor of the motion, signify your approval by raising your hand, starting with me. I think we got it. Thank you. Okay, that one's covered. There being no member voting against the motion or withholding their vote, the motion is carried. The agenda for the 2021 annual meeting of members of the CAO is accepted. Next slide, 5. We're going to now move to acceptance of the last year annual meeting minutes. I'm going to hand this over to Treasurer and Secretary Judy Sue for the acceptance. You're on mute, Judy.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members of the CAO and attendees from the condominium community who are joining us today. The draft minutes of the last year's annual meeting, which took place in Toronto on September 16, 2020, were shared with the members. Is there any question from any members on the minutes? Please raise your hand if you do have a question. Seeing none, I move that the minutes of the 2019-20 annual meeting for September 16, 2020 be accepted.
I second the motion.
All right, any discussion? Pause for that. Seeing none, I'll then ask all in favor of the motion to do so, signifying by raising your hand. And one more time. Yeah, it's kind of fun having everybody on screen at the same time. I can actually see you guys. There being no member voting against the motion or withholding their vote, the motion is carried. I will now call on Treasurer and Secretary Judy Sue as we move on to the matter of the financial statements and Auditor's report for the year ending March 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Chair. We are pleased to present the financial statements and Auditor's report for the CAO for year ending March 31st, 2021. I will call on CAO's Chief Financial and Operations Officer, Rana Kuram Mansour, to provide an overview of the financial results and Auditor's findings.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you to everyone for attending this morning. I'm pleased to present the audited financial statements of CAO for the fiscal year 2020-21, covering the period from April 1, 2020 to March 31st, 2021. The financial records of the CAO were audited by the external auditor Sloan Partners LLP during the May 2021, and the audited draft financial statements were presented to the CAO board on July 7th, 2021 for the approval by the board and sign off by the auditors. The auditor provide a clean audit report with no misstatements or errors. The board thoroughly reviewed the audited financial statements and approved them on September 9, 2021, with minor editorial corrections. The statements were approved by both the board and by the auditors. They were then filed with the Ontario Ministry of Government and Consumer Services and were posted on the CAO website as part of the 2021 annual report. Thank you.
Thank you, Rana. I move that the financial statements of the corporation for the financial year ending March 31st, 2021, together with the reports of the corporation's auditor thereon, are accepted.
I second the motion.
Heather, you're on mute, sorry.
I'm unmuted. Then ask for all in favor of the motion to so signify by raising your hand, starting with me here. Okay, we've got everybody. Thank you. There being no member voting against the motion or withholding their vote, the motion is carried. Thank you, Judy and Rana. Judy, please continue.
On the matter of appointing the auditors of the corporation, I move that Sloan Partners LLP, Chartered Professional Accountants, be appointed auditors of the Condominium Authority of Ontario until the next annual meeting or until their successor is appointed, and that the remuneration for such role be fixed by the directors.
I second the motion.
Okay, I will then ask all in favor of the motion to so signify by raising your hand. Got everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. There being no member voting against the motion or withholding their vote, the motion is carried. Now we'll move on to the election of directors of the Condominium Authority. The next item of business is the election of directors of the Condominium Authority of Ontario. I will now entertain the nomination for one vacancy we have. That's because Mary Throop, who is here with us, is not standing. She took a one-year term and she's not standing for re-election. So we are going to fill that vacancy in accordance with the administrative agreement and the general bylaw. I'd like to pass this matter over to Eric Levinson, Chair of the Board's Nominating Committee.
Thank you. This year's nominating committee process evaluated candidates based on their skills and experience against the competency criteria established in Schedule D to the administrative agreement and to ensure diversity of backgrounds and perspectives from the condominium sector. This process included a written component and 2 rounds of interviews with the final candidates. On behalf of the nominating committee, I nominate the following individual to be an elected director of the Condominium Authority of Ontario, effective today. Vincenza Galatoni for a 3-year term.
I second this nomination.
And there's Vincenza joining us now online. Thank you, Vincenza. The nomination process for the Condominium Authority is intense, and Vincenza went through it last year, and so she went through it again this year, and so we're happy to have her nominated this year. Are there any further nominations for the members? Okay, thank you. As there are no further nominations from the members, I now declare the nominations closed. I'll request that all in favor of the motion so signify by raising your hand, please. Thank you. Everybody's there. Thank you. There being no member voting against the motion or withholding their vote, the motion is carried. Thank you. Welcome, Vincenza. After giving effect to the foregoing, the board of directors of the corporation consists of 3 appointees by the minister. First, that's myself. I'm a minister's appointment for a 3-year term ending November 2021. Secondly, Margaret Samuel, who is a minister's, put your hand, oh, you can see her, appointment for a 3-year term ending September 2022. And Judy Sue, who is a minister's appointment for a 3-year term to March 2023. Then we have the elected directors. So we've got Larry Bannock, elected for a 2-year term to September 2022. Allison Scanlon, elected for a 2-year term to, again, September 2022. Eric Levinson was elected to a 3-year term to September 2023. And Vincenza Galatoni, elected for a 3-year term now till September 2024. You're going to outlast all of us, possibly. On behalf of the Condominium Authority of Ontario, I am pleased to welcome our newly elected member, Vincenza, whose skills and experience will help advance the board's strategic goals in guiding the work of the CAO. Her biography will be available on the CAO website shortly. And I should just add, she's from Ottawa. So we found that we had perhaps too many people from Toronto on this board, so we're now expanding east. On behalf, let's see. On behalf of the board and CAO staff, I'd like to take a moment to thank Mary Throop for her 1-year term that is concluding today. Mary has been a dedicated board member, and we are grateful for her service and many contributions to the organization. We wish her all the best as she continues to help us, and I think she will, and condominium owners and communities in other ways. Thank you, Mary. All right, at this point, now we're moving on to an update in the meeting. So I'm pleased to update on behalf of the board of directors. And I'll do an update, and then we're going to have Robin Defoe will do a second update to get all the material in here. There's a lot going on. And it's been another unprecedented year as we continue to navigate through the COVID-19 pandemic as an organization supporting approximately 1.6 million people who live in condominiums across Ontario. And that number is growing every day. I'm sitting here looking up Yonge Street and from my office, my law firm office, and the construction is incredible. It's just, and then you go King Street, go east, it's just nonstop. So moving on to slide 14, we're talking about committees. With the election of our new board, we've moved quickly to establish a new strategic plan and committee governance structure to guide the work of the CAO, which resulted in establishment of 5 committees with the terms of reference confirmed for each committee in accordance with the CAO administrative agreement, including, okay, so number 1, always my favorite, headed by Judy Sue, the Audit and Risk Standing Committee to validate the results of the audit and the integrity of the board's financial procedures and on enterprise risk assessment and management process. And of course, we meet quarterly because we have quarterly financial statements as well. Number 2 is the Technology Subcommittee to provide expertise and advice on information technology, IT, and major IT related projects as enablers of the CAO's digital services. This is a very digital organization. This subcommittee's work is going to be reintegrated into the audit committee this year, just to simplify our structure a bit. The governance and HR committee is number 3, to ensure governance functions for the organization and the board are implemented and oversight of executive HR functions. Number 4, we have the outreach committee. This was new this year. And this is really important for this organization, to identify priority communication initiatives and programs that increase awareness and build engagement with condominium communities and the public, and increase lines of communication between the CAO and condominium owners. And for those of you who are participating, you can expect to see a lot more outreach coming in the next year. Number 5 is the Tribunal Advisory Panel. That's headed by Larry Bannock with myself and Margaret on it, the 3 lawyers on the, yeah, we can never have enough lawyers on that committee. We're providing the chair of the CAT, the Condominium Authority Tribunal, with input, advice, and recommendations on matters relating to the effectiveness of adjudicated policies and procedures and to the provision of fair, just, and accessible, cost-effective, and expeditious dispute resolution services of the CAT. And I'll let you know that we just yesterday received another letter from the ministry confirming that we are getting an expansion on January 1st. So look out for that on our website. Number 6 is the nominating committee, and that is to fill vacancies in the elected directors of the board per the bylaw. And as you just saw, we had Mary coming off the board, and today we're bringing on Vincenza. Well, now I just want to talk about some stories. This is something we did, it was requested by the minister actually, to sort of, hear some of the positive things that have come out of COVID-19. So as a condominium owner, former condominium board president myself, and longstanding member of the condominium community, I understand that many benefits and unique challenges have been faced firsthand. As many of us on this call know, what makes condominium living unique is the community that you are immersed in and part of. Recently, the CAO canvassed condominium communities for their stories. We heard from people across the province who shared stories of support and resiliency in coming together to navigate condominium living during the pandemic. We heard from one condominium owner, this is, just lovely, regarding newcomers, a group that was formed to help people who are new to their condominium community during COVID. This group met virtually every week and provided a forum for people to ask questions about living in their condominiums and served as a support for those living alone. Very important. In the words of our submitter, I looked forward to that group meeting each week. It held us together, held me together, she says. This is just one of many stories on how condominium communities have pulled together in the face of challenging times. We are continuing to seek this. We had it when we put it up originally. There was a deadline, and we said, "Look, we don't want a deadline." And we're encouraging you all to share your stories with us. Our facilitator will post the email address on the chat room that we have down here, and you can email your submission, or you can email it separately at another date. I'm proud to say that the CAO, and I just want to mention, we are publishing a annual report. It should be up now, and that is where some of these stories are being posted. I'm proud to say that the CAO continues to be an expert voice for condominium communities across the province, providing policy guidance on issues affecting condominiums and new resources. And we're working on this like every day. It's a work in progress. These resources cover a range of issues, including providing updates on the government's roadmap to reopen, information for owners on masks and face coverings, and creating a COVID-19 safety plan for condominium corporations. So these are things that people in the community can use. They can adapt it for their own situation, but we're at least giving you some baselines. The CAO is here for all of us, and I'm proud to serve with my fellow dedicated professionals that make up the board of directors. Having responded successfully to the challenges and unparalleled issues, change we faced over the last year, the board has set an ambitious strategic agenda for the current year that is already well underway. I should mention our year end is actually March. So yes, we're well into the year, and is focused on enhancing outreach and communication with condominiums across the province. With that in mind, CAO will be undertaking a broad outreach campaign. We're pretty excited about this. It's in progress to connect with condominium residents directly. That's our objective. If we send stuff just to the corporations, it doesn't always get through. So we're trying to figure out ways to get to the community itself. Part of that campaign is the CAO's new no-charge subscription service, which is really signing up for communications from the CAO. And I encourage everyone who's on this annual meeting to go to our website and sign up, please, and tell your friends and relative community members. And actually, we should be putting up right now a link to that in their chat room for you again to see that easily. On slide 16, wow, we're moving along quickly. We're going to go over to the CEO and our registrar. Now I'd like to turn the mic over to Robin Defoe, who is our Condominium Authority Chief Executive Officer and Registrar, to speak a bit more on the highlights since our last annual meeting and the road ahead for the CAO to achieve the vision of a strong and vibrant community sector in Ontario. Over to you, Robin.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to all those attending this morning. It's a pleasure to have you join us virtually. As Heather said, the past year was unique and challenging for all of us. I had the honor and privilege of working with a highly skilled staff and board of directors at CAO who pulled together to deliver and enhance our digital services in support of condominium communities across the province and to help keep them safe. And this was done while the staff themselves also coped with the circumstances of the pandemic, including virtual school, caring for elderly or isolated parents, and supporting friends and neighbors while continuing in their work. The CAO is a proud digital-first organization. That digital foundation enabled not only the continuity of our operations safely throughout the pandemic, but allowed us to continue to enhance our services and expand our mandate. A highlight of the past year was the Auditor General of Ontario's Value for Money audit and report on condominium oversight in Ontario. The lead up to the report required significant input and engagement of the staff, management, and the board to respond to the auditor's review process and the report's recommendations for the condominium sector. Overall, the AG's report confirmed the strength of and confidence in the CAO's operations since it launched just 2 years before the audit began, and included several policy recommendations to expand or enhance the CAO's mandate. In October 2020, the jurisdiction of the Condominium Authority Tribunal, or we refer to it as the CAT, Canada's first fully online tribunal, expanded beyond records to include disputes related to pets, parking, and storage. These issues are addressed in the Condominium Corporation's declarations, bylaws, and rules. Responding to the new jurisdiction expansion was an exciting challenge since it was not only the first expansion since the tribunal's launch in 2017, but the expansion involved disputes of more than 2 parties. We also heard that one of the most pressing issues for the sector this past year was the inability to hold in-person owners meetings. To help solve this problem, in October 2020, the CAO created the Guide to Conducting Owners Meetings During the COVID-19 Pandemic, to help the condominium corporations across the province understand their options for holding owners' meetings, as well as ways to navigate health and safety restrictions outlined by public health officials. In addition to providing ongoing support and resources during the pandemic, the team launched Ontario's Residential Buyer's Guide. This was created following delegation by the Minister of Government and Consumer Services under the Act to the CAO, and we worked in collaboration with the ministry staff, and the guide was approved by the minister. The minister also delegated the CAO with responsibility for 19 forms under the Condominium Act in both official languages. That in total is 38 forms. So the forms are now available in one-click openable and are available in two formats. There's a fillable format that can be filled out online in the browser and saved and then shared electronically, and a non-fillable format that can be printed and filled out by hand. Believe it or not, developing those forms in that format is harder than you might think.
A lot harder than you might think.
Thank you, Heather. Two additional resources the CAO developed to support the sector were the launch of the Annual Requirements Guide and the Condo Calendar app. We're very proud of these new products. The guide and the calendar app were produced as an easy-to-use solution for owners, directors, and managers to calculate their annual requirement dates for your corporation under the Act. The app will help condominium corporations and owners ensure that important filing deadlines are not missed each year. So you can check that out on our website. A couple of other achievements for 2021 included additional system validations of the information that's collected through condominium returns to better ensure the accuracy of data that is published on our public registry and deliver on our consumer protection mandate. Phase one of the CAO's new integrated website and content management system was also developed to enhance navigation and search functionality and better capture feedback regarding our services and resources. I encourage everyone to visit our annual report that is available on our website and contains full details of all of the CAO's activities this past year. Looking ahead, as the chair indicated, we have an ambitious agenda for 21-22, which is set out in our strategic business plan, also available on our website. Key among the priorities is our continued commitment to implement the recommendations of the Auditor General's report. We're also preparing for expansion of the CAT's jurisdiction on January 1st, 2022, as announced by the government just yesterday. And we're moving forward with a minister's request to conduct a broad policy consultation with the sector regarding future jurisdictional expansion of the tribunal. Other priorities underway this year include the additional outreach and communications to increase awareness that the chair talked about, new guides to support condo communities, including a best practice guide for directors, gathering feedback on CAO services through various advisory panels and user groups, and improving and automating our compliance processes to ensure quality data and, again, fulfilling our consumer protection mandate. The CAO's accomplishments this past year required a collective effort, and that was made possible due to the strategic guidance of the CAO's board, the dedicated and talented staff, and the collaborative partnerships with both the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services and the Condominium Management Regulatory Authority of Ontario. On behalf of the CAO, thank you for attending today. We look forward to continuing to support a strong and vibrant condominium sector in Ontario. And back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Robin. And I would just encourage everyone to go to our website. We are improving the website, and we've got a major project on to do that, but there's a lot of material that's there that is very helpful and answering basic questions and giving some suggestions on things that you can think about in your communities. We will now move on to the question of whether there is any other business, which is a formal requirement. And hearing none, I can now move on to adjournment, and thank you for attending. This concludes the formal agenda of our annual meeting. Can I request a motion to conclude the meeting?
I move this annual meeting be concluded.
And the seconder? Margaret
I
Sammy?
second the motion.
Thank you. Yeah, I know it's tricky with the mute buttons. I then ask all current members, including our newest member, Vincenza, who are in favor of the motion to so signify by raising your hand. Great. There being no member voting against the motion or withholding their vote, the motion is carried. I declare this meeting concluded and adjourned at 9:32. That was pretty quick. Thank you again to our former and current board members for participating today, and thank you for all attendees from the condominium community and the public for joining us. Please tell others in your condominium communities what you learned today and encourage them to, one, sign up for our communications, as I've previously indicated, attend, and number two, attend our annual meeting next year. We have grown this meeting attendance from 300 last year to 1,300 registrants this year. But given that we have 1.6 million people living in condos, we have a long way to go. So we'll look forward to future growth. I'll turn over to Emily now.
Thank you, Heather. As indicated earlier, questions posted in the chat by attendees will be considered and responses will be posted along with a recording of this annual meeting on our website shortly. Thank you for joining us today.